The story of our planet doesn't begin with facts or numbers. It begins with a feeling you get when you look at Earth from far above, suspended in the quiet blackness of space. Astronauts often say that nothing truly prepares you for that sight. No photograph, no documentary, no simulation. They say the Earth doesn't look like a planet at all. It looks alive. It glows, it breathes, it moves. The colors are brighter than you expect, the deep blues, the swirling whites, the warm touches of green and brown. And there is something else, something harder to explain, something they talk about in hushed voices as if afraid to break the spell. They say that Earth feels fragile, like a living miracle caught in the dark ocean of the cosmos. Imagine drifting just beyond the thin halo of our atmosphere, watching the planet turn beneath you. At first, it looks calm, peaceful, but the longer you look, the more you realize that serenity is only the surface of something endlessly dynamic. You can see storms unfolding like slow-motion explosions, giant spirals of clouds stretching thousands of miles. You can see patches of desert glowing under the sun, and oceans shifting from sapphire to charcoal as clouds slide across them. Even from this distance, Earth doesn't seem still. It seems to pulse. If you stay there long enough, you begin to notice something else, a faint blue outline wrapping the world, just a ribbon of light, barely thicker than the skin of an apple relative to the planet itself. Yet within that thin ribbon lies everything. Every breath ever taken, every sound ever spoken, every moment of life that has unfolded on Earth has happened beneath that delicate veil of air. It's astonishing when you think about it, how something so thin can be so powerful, so protective, so essential. That faint blue line is the atmosphere, and for the next 2 hours we're going to travel through it, layer by layer, discovering how extraordinary, chaotic, and perfectly balanced it really is. But before we dive into the atmosphere itself, we need to appreciate just how special Earth is in the first place. Out of every world we've explored, every distant orbiting sphere seen through telescopes or visited by our machines, none behaves quite like this one. None has this delicate pairing of warmth and cold, this interplay of air and water, this choreography of winds and oceans. Earth is not just a planet, it is a system, a vast and subtle machine built from countless moving parts, each influencing the other in ways scientists are still barely beginning to understand. If you were to stand on the moon and look back at Earth, you would notice that the planet seems to glow differently depending on where you focus. The oceans scatter sunlight in a way that makes them shimmer. The clouds reflect it almost like mirrors. The continents absorb it. And the atmosphere, that fragile envelope, bends and filters light in ways that create sunsets so brilliant that astronauts say they remember them for the rest of their lives. Some describe the horizon of Earth as a burning band of neon, shifting from gold to crimson to an otherworldly violet as sunlight pierces through the layers of air. Down on the surface, we rarely think about that. We don't notice the ocean of gas above us because we live inside it. It's invisible, silent, and effortless. But everything we know, every familiar rhythm of daily life depends on it. The warmth of sunlight, the coolness of night, the breath in our lungs, the winds that shape landscapes, the rain that falls from clouds, all of it exists because of the layers of air that surround our world. For us, the atmosphere is simply background. For Earth, it is the heartbeat. To understand how strange and miraculous this system is, imagine removing the atmosphere for just 10 seconds. The oceans would begin to boil, not from heat, but because water exposed directly to space would vaporize instantly. Temperatures would swing from unbearable cold to scorching heat in minutes. Sound would disappear. Sky color would vanish. And life, all life, would end. That is how dependent we are on this invisible shield. But that shield isn't a single thing. It's a series of layers, each with its own personality, its own physics, its own story to tell. These layers don't sit still. They shift. They breathe. They interact with the sun in ways both beautiful and violent. In our journey, we'll begin at the ground and rise upward, moving through worlds that most people never think about, even though we live inside them every day. Down here at the surface, we stand within the troposphere, the lowest layer of the atmosphere, the one that holds nearly all the air we breathe and all the weather we experience. Every rainstorm, every gust of wind, every cloud, every snowflake begins here. If you could climb a mountain tall enough to reach the top of the troposphere, you would feel the world thinning around you. The air would become colder, sharper, drier. The blue of the sky would darken as the atmosphere above you grew thinner. Most commercial airplanes fly near the upper edges of this layer, skimming along the border between the familiar and the strange. Pilots often describe the sensation as both exhilarating and humbling. A gray, almost silver light surrounds the aircraft, and the world below looks distant, stretched, quiet, almost like another planet. What's truly fascinating is how alive the troposphere is. It never rests. Warm air rises, cold air sinks, winds race across continents, moisture evaporates and condenses. Storms form and collapse in a matter of hours. The troposphere is the Earth's giant mixing bowl, constantly blending heat, moisture, and motion. On a global scale, it creates massive patterns, jet streams, monsoons, trade winds that shape the climates of entire regions. On a local scale, it creates the subtle breeze that brushes your face on a warm afternoon. The deeper you look, the more miraculous it becomes. A single cloud, something we barely notice, is a floating mountain of water, made of droplets so tiny they can hover in the air. Some clouds weigh millions of pounds, yet they drift effortlessly. Lightning bolts, which look instantaneous from the ground, can stretch for miles and carry more electrical energy than anything humans have ever engineered. Raindrops form around microscopic dust particles. Fog can be so thin it disappears with a breath, or so thick it can hide a city. The troposphere is full of wonders we see every day but rarely appreciate. And then, as we rise above it, something remarkable happens. The air suddenly stops cooling and begins to warm again. The winds calm, the turbulence fades, the sky darkens to a deeper shade of blue. We have reached the stratosphere, a place that feels almost alien compared to the world below. Here, the rules change. Here, the air behaves differently, moving horizontally instead of vertically. It is a realm of smooth streams and stable layers, where weather rarely intrudes. But what makes the stratosphere truly extraordinary is what lives inside it. A protective blanket that changed the destiny of life on Earth, the ozone layer. It floats like a guardian, absorbing the sun's harmful ultraviolet rays, preventing them from reaching the surface in deadly amounts. Without this thin band of ozone, life as we know it would never have evolved. Even now, when we talk about environmental achievements, the recovery of the ozone layer is one of humanity's greatest victories, proof that when we understand the systems of Earth, we can protect them. From here, the journey upward becomes even stranger, but we'll explore that in the next section as we continue rising through layers where the air grows thin, temperatures swing wildly, and the sky transforms from blue to black. If you step far enough away from Earth, far beyond the clouds, beyond the orbit of the moon, beyond the quiet pull of our gravity, our world becomes a soft, glowing marble suspended in an ocean of black. Astronauts often say that this view changes them forever, because from that distance, the borders, the noise, the rush of everyday life simply disappear. What remains is a world wrapped in a delicate halo of blue. That halo is our atmosphere, and it is far thinner, far more fragile, and far more extraordinary than most of us ever realize. The atmosphere is the reason Earth feels alive. It shapes every breath we take, every wave that rises from the sea, every gust of wind that sweeps across a desert. And even though we tend to think of it as a single entity, it's actually a layered, dynamic, constantly shifting shield, one that has been sculpted by billions of years of sunlight, chemistry, volcanic eruptions, ancient oceans, and even microorganisms that lived long before animals ever crawled onto land. When you stand outside on a quiet morning and breathe in the crisp, cool air, you're experiencing the very bottom of this multi-layered envelope, the troposphere. It stretches only about 7 to 12 miles above us, barely the thickness of paint compared to the size of the Earth. But it holds almost everything that feels familiar. The clouds, the weather, the air we need to survive. Every raindrop, every thunderstorm, every breeze that rattles a window at night exists within this thin, restless layer. The troposphere is warm at the bottom, where sunlight heats the land and oceans. That warmth rises, cools, sinks again, and rises once more, creating a massive engine of motion that never shuts off. Without this circulation, our world would be eerily still. No winds, no storms, no fresh air mixing across continents. Everything we know as weather wouldn't just change, it would vanish. But as you rise upward, the world changes quickly. About 6 miles above the ground, the air becomes so thin that humans would pass out within minutes. At 10 miles, the temperature drops to levels colder than Antarctica's harshest nights. And then, eventually, the weather gives way to silence. This is where the stratosphere begins. It's a calm, layered region, so stable that pilots of long-distance flights often cruise right through it to escape turbulence. Up here, clouds are rare. Winds flow in long, smooth rivers, and something extraordinary lives in this high, cold realm, something that made complex life on Earth possible. The ozone layer. It's easy to imagine ozone as something like an invisible blanket, but in truth, it's astonishingly thin. If you compressed all the ozone in the stratosphere down to the surface, spread across the planet, it would be no thicker than a couple of millimeters. And yet, this delicate film absorbs most of the sun's harmful ultraviolet radiation, preventing it from sterilizing the planet. Without ozone, Earth would be a barren desert, stripped clean of forests, oceans teeming with life, and the billions of species that have shaped our world. Sunlight interacts continuously with the ozone layer. Every moment of every day, high-energy UV rays break apart oxygen molecules, while other molecules recombine to form ozone. It's a dance of destruction and creation, happening at such speed that the balance has remained relatively stable for millions of years, except for a brief period in our recent history, when human-made chemicals disrupted the cycle and tore open a wound in the sky over Antarctica. The ozone hole was a warning, a reminder that even the strongest natural systems can be vulnerable. But it was also a rare story of global cooperation, where nations united to protect something essential. Today, the ozone layer is slowly healing, proving that when people choose to act, even the planet's greatest challenges are not impossible. Beyond the stratosphere lies the mesosphere, a realm more mysterious than the deep ocean. Few aircraft have ever traveled here, and the air is too thin for balloons to rise. This is the coldest place on Earth. Temperatures plunge far below anything found at the poles. Here, fragments of space debris burn into brilliant streaks of light. Every shooting star you've ever seen, every meteor that flared and vanished like a spark on a winter night, was destroyed in this distant layer of air. For a brief second, a tiny piece of the cosmos writes its signature across our sky before fading forever. Then, as you continue upward, the atmosphere shifts again. The thermosphere is where space begins to whisper through the thinning air. Satellites orbit here. The International Space Station circles the Earth in this realm, gliding through the faintest traces of atmosphere. Though the air is thin, the temperature can soar to thousands of degrees in direct sunlight, heat created not by warmth you could feel, but by the speed of individual particles moving with tremendous energy. This paradoxical extreme is one of many ways in which the upper atmosphere simply doesn't behave the way our human instincts expect. And in this vast, nearly silent region, one of Earth's most breathtaking phenomena occurs: the auroras. High-energy particles from the sun collide with molecules in the upper atmosphere, transforming invisible interactions into shimmering curtains of green, red, purple, and blue. These lights dance across polar skis like whispers from the universe itself. Long ago, cultures saw them as messages from spirits or pathways between worlds. Today, we see them as the signature of a living, breathing planet interacting with its star. Even higher still, in the exosphere, the atmosphere thins into the void of space. Here, Atoms and molecules drift so far apart that they can travel miles before touching another particle. Some escape entirely, leaving Earth behind and drifting into the endless dark. At this altitude, the sky is black even at noon. The Earth curves below like a sphere of blue, green, and white, wrapped in the faintest glow of scattered sunlight. What's remarkable is that this entire layered structure, this complex, fragile, dynamic shield, exists because of forces that operate on a scale both unimaginably vast and incredibly small. Sunlight, gravity, molecular motion, chemistry, life itself, all of them sculpted this thin blue line that holds everything we know. If the Earth were the size of a classroom globe, the atmosphere would be no thicker than a coat of varnish. Yet inside that coat lies every breath ever taken, every storm that ever raged, every climate that ever shaped civilizations. Our atmosphere is easy to forget because it is invisible, but it is the reason our world feels like home. Imagine standing in a forest at dawn. Light filters through leaves, carrying the scent of pine or damp soil. You can feel the warmth rising, hear distant birds waking in the trees, sense the air shifting gently against your skin. All of this, every detail of that simple, peaceful moment, is possible because our atmosphere shields us, nurtures us, and connects us to every living thing around us. And like everything on Earth, it is constantly changing. Winds carry dust from the Sahara across the Atlantic, where it fertilizes the Amazon rainforest. Air currents push storms across oceans and allow seeds, spores, and even microscopic life to travel thousands of miles. The atmosphere ties continents together, blends ecosystems, shapes weather patterns that influence the rise and fall of civilizations. It is not a static thing. It has transformed dramatically over Earth's history, sometimes gently, sometimes violently. And at the core of those transformations lies a delicate balance, one that has allowed liquid water, stable temperatures, and life to thrive for billions of years. But one of the most fascinating aspects of this story isn't just the atmosphere itself. It's the way Earth's surface and sky interact, how oceans breathe into the air, how mountains sculpt winds, how forests and deserts reshape the composition of the atmosphere molecule by molecule. Every part of the planet participates in this dance, from the deepest ocean trench to the edge of space. As we continue this journey, we'll drift through this relationship between Earth and sky, exploring how the atmosphere and our planet's surface evolve together, how they influence each other in every moment, and how this extraordinary balance makes Earth not only unique in our solar system, but profoundly alive. It's hard to understand just how rare and extraordinary our home is until you look at it from a cosmic distance, not through the eyes of a traveler or a scientist, but through the quiet, indifferent lens of the universe itself. And when Earth is placed side by side with the other worlds of our solar system, it doesn't blend in. It doesn't look ordinary. It stands out like an impossible exception, a strange miracle forged from a combination of circumstances so unlikely that they almost feel intentional, though we know they're not. Almost everything that exists here, the oceans, the atmosphere, the forests, the colors, is a product of a delicate balance that appears nowhere else around our sun. Compared to its neighbors, Earth seems almost lucky. Mercury sits too close to the sun, too small to hold on to an atmosphere. Venus mirrors our size, but its thick blanket of carbon dioxide traps so much heat that its surface becomes hotter than molten lead, while clouds of sulfuric acid swirl endlessly above it. Mars, colder and thinner, carries the scars of ancient rivers but cannot keep liquid water on its surface today. And beyond Mars, the giant planets are made of gas, with storms the size of continents and winds that could shred steel. And then there is Earth, not too hot, not too cold, large enough to hold an atmosphere but not so massive that the atmosphere crushes everything beneath it, close enough to the sun to stay warm, yet far enough to avoid boiling away its oceans. It sits in what astronomers like to call the habitable zone, but even that phrase feels too simplistic for something this precise. Approach Earth from the airless silence of space, and the first thing you notice is color. No other planet shines in such vibrant blues and bright whites. The shimmering oceans and liquid water, stable and abundant, are among the rarest treasures in the entire solar system. Water that doesn't evaporate, doesn't freeze, doesn't hide beneath the ground, but instead pools openly on the surface, dancing with sunlight and atmosphere. That alone makes Earth an outlier among worlds. Its atmosphere is even stranger. From orbit, it looks like a thin blue halo, so delicate you'd think a single touch might break it. And yet it is perfectly tuned. There is enough oxygen to support complex life, but not so much that a single spark would burn the planet down. Enough greenhouse gases to trap warmth, but not enough to transform the planet into a furnace like Venus. High above, a sheet of ozone stands guard, catching deadly ultraviolet radiation before it reaches the ground where life thrives. Then there is the magnetic field, an invisible shield powered by the molten heart of the planet. Without it, solar radiation would strip away our atmosphere the way it did on Mars, and Earth's surface would be blasted by charged particles that make life nearly impossible. Instead, the magnetic field pushes the solar wind aside, bending it around us, protecting every living thing on this planet whether we notice it or not. And perhaps the most overlooked miracle of all is our moon. Too large for a world as small as Earth, it stabilizes our tilt, anchoring our seasons in a consistent rhythm. Without the moon, Earth's axis would wobble unpredictably, shifting climates so drastically, and so often that life as we know it might never have found a stable foothold. Even Earth's geology is part of this cosmic dance. The crust is broken into plates that move, collide, rise, and sink slowly, imperceptibly, but powerfully enough to shape continents and regulate the carbon cycle. This motion prevents the atmosphere from building up too much carbon dioxide, helping keep the planet temperate instead of letting it drift into a runaway greenhouse effect or a frozen wasteland. Other planets have crusts that sit frozen in place, like silent masks. Only Earth moves, breathes, recycles, and transforms itself from the inside out. When we compare Earth with its neighbors, its stability begins to feel like a delicate illusion. It is not a gift. It is not magic. It is a narrow window of possibility carved out by an endless interplay of forces, each one tuned so precisely that the slightest change could have rendered this world unrecognizable. On Venus, a day lasts longer than a year, and the atmosphere is 90 times thicker than ours. On Jupiter, storms rage for centuries. On Saturn, diamond rain may fall through liquid clouds of methane. On Uranus, the sun rises once every 42 years. On Neptune, winds reach speeds no human structure could survive. And here on this small blue world orbiting an ordinary star, everything somehow aligns: pressure, temperature, water, air, geology, magnetism, and even the moon, to create a place where life blooms, spreads, and evolves into a billion different forms. When viewed from afar, Earth doesn't look like just a planet. It looks like a rarity, a sanctuary, a cosmic stroke of luck wrapped in clouds and oceans. The more we explore the solar system, the more we discover just how strange and precious our home truly is. Earth is often spoken of as if it's ordinary, a medium-sized planet circling a medium-sized star in a galaxy filled with billions more. But that simplicity is deceiving. If you step back and look at our world the way astronomers look across light years of space, something becomes clear very quickly. Earth is weird, unusually weird, improbably tuned, almost suspiciously lucky. And that strangeness is exactly what makes it home. Compared to the scorched, 900-degree Fahrenheit wasteland of Venus, Earth's surface is cool and calm enough for oceans to form. Compared to the dry, frigid deserts of Mars, Earth's atmosphere is dense and warm enough to cradle global weather systems, forests, rivers, and life. Compared to Mercury's blistering days and freezing nights, Earth's rotation and distance from the sun smooth the climate into something that can be lived in. And when you glance outward to the giant worlds, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Earth becomes even stranger, a tiny rocky speck in a realm dominated by colossal planets made of gas and ice. But Earth's true uniqueness isn't just in the things it has. It's in the delicate balance between them. We have an atmosphere thin enough to let sunlight pour through, yet thick enough to trap just the right amount of heat. We have a magnetic field strong enough to shield us from deadly radiation, yet invisible and quiet enough that most people go their whole lives without noticing it. We have liquid water that cycles through evaporation, condensation, and rain like a planetary heartbeat. And we orbit a star that is stable, predictable, and long-lived, something that, on a cosmic scale, is not guaranteed. And then there's the moon. Of all the coincidences Earth enjoys, the moon might be the most astonishing. It's unusually large for a planet of Earth's size, and that size gives it power. It stabilizes our tilt, preventing the wild swings that could otherwise transform our climate into chaos. It drags at our oceans, creating tides that helped shape coastlines, ecosystems, and perhaps even early life. Its presence slows our rotation just enough to make days long and stable. Out of all the planets in our solar system, no other world has a companion like this. Travel farther outward and Earth becomes stranger still. Among the thousands of exoplanets discovered across the galaxy, many are gas giants hugging their stars, or frozen worlds in permanent darkness, or super-Earths with crushing gravity, or hot Jupiters orbiting close enough that a year lasts days. Earth-like worlds, truly Earth-like worlds, remain elusive. When astronomers model what a habitable planet should look like, they often end up with something that suspiciously resembles Earth itself. It's no exaggeration to say that Earth is a cosmic jackpot. And yet, for all its rarity, for all its improbable balance and delicate beauty, most of us experience this planet in the smallest of ways. A warm breeze through an open window, the sound of rain against a roof, the pale blue sky reflected in a puddle after a storm, tiny details of a world shaped by enormous cosmic forces. The atmosphere we breathe, layered, protective, astonishingly thin, keeps us alive every second. The magnetosphere, silent and unseen, deflects radiation from a star that could easily kill us. The oceans shield temperatures, store heat, and cradle entire networks of life. The continents drift slowly, rearranging the face of the world over millions of years. And above it all, the moon pulls at us, steady as a metronome. Every part of this planet is in motion. Every part is connected. Every part is improbable. And perhaps this is why astronauts, after seeing Earth from space, almost always report the same unexpected feeling. Oh yes, beauty of course, but also fragility. From orbit, Earth looks like a single shimmering marble floating in darkness. No borders, no divisions, just a thin blue line of atmosphere wrapping around everything we know. They come back changed. So maybe the true uniqueness of Earth isn't just geological or atmospheric or even biological. Maybe it's emotional, because Earth is the only place in the universe that's ever made us feel anything at all. The only place we laugh, argue, dream, create music, tell stories, and wonder about the stars. It's the only place where a sunrise means something. The only place where a storm has a smell. The only place where a mountain isn't just a rock. It's a memory, a challenge, a symbol. Earth is not perfect, but in the vast silence of space, imperfection is its own kind of miracle. And that brings us to the end of our journey. We've traveled through its atmosphere, watched its magnetic field dance with solar winds, explored the layers that protect us, and compared our world to the harsh and unforgiving neighbors around it. And after all that, a truth remains. Earth is rare, precious, and absolutely irreplaceable. As we step back from our tour, imagine the view from far away, from the moon, or from Mars, or from the deep dark beyond the heliosphere. There it is, a small blue light glowing faintly against the black. A world that shouldn't exist as it does, yet somehow does. A world that supports life in all its forms. A world that carries our entire story. Our home, our anchor, our improbable gift. And in the quiet of space, Earth continues its journey around the sun, steady, fragile, beautiful, inviting us to understand it, protect it, and appreciate it for the astonishing place it truly is.